Hello, Mixmay here. So, if you saw the last vlog I made, I did mention at one point how there was a connection to my mental health and then the mashups I made, which dates back to when I was a teen. I was going to explain there, but I did a little oopsie whoopsie, went off script, and I didn't really talk about it in detail. So, this video is going to cover that, and just the emphasis on mental health in general, with my script in hand. So, I add some gameplay footage like before, and yeah, let's talk. So basically, when high school got rough and the pressure was at its peak, I turned to trying music mashups as a hobby. I was screwing around and finding out because I had no clue what I was doing. Then I had been inspired by other mashup artists, understanding how they've pulled things off, and eventually that's what turned into getting the first YouTube channel up in 2012. Part of the reason I was partially able to hold my own surviving for the years I was at high school was because of the mashups I've been exposed to during my time online, including mashup requests, because it was what they exposed me to in regards to new media. Because I was very stubborn and admittedly insecure about having different tastes and fear of judgment of others as a kid, it was hard for me to get into new things. But eventually later, thanks to again other people's mashups and requests, when the old channel was getting popular, I was open to the likes of Skillet, Linkin Park, Persona, BlazBlue, and so many more at the time. Eventually at some point, I allowed myself to be empowered by my own mashups to get through those rough stages in life. I said it in the other channel's bio, in a way, some of them tell a story. It was my way to express myself in times where words couldn't do justice, and this still applies in the present day. For example, the unexpectancy of rising up was empowering for me by way that by the end of last year, I had mostly recovered from what was a bad case of body and gender dysphoria that I had since the end of 2023. So I was ready to take on the world with a newfound confidence. I still play it back recently sometimes because I'm proud of that mashup. Eventually paired with self-discovery with my own identity, and then especially being in VRChat, which helped me overcome years of anxiety, I found myself being into a lot more media now, not just because of my boost in confidence online and just being myself generally. The platform is a mashup fest in itself, both by way of what worlds are around, the avatars you can wear, and obviously the people you encounter. So, just a suggestion from me, try and be open-minded when exploring new media. If there's any mashups I've done and you haven't heard the games or artists before, please take a look into them. It could change your life, like how some have changed mine. Also, an honorable mention of a TV series that helped me get through a lot of the stages of high school was ABC's series Once Upon a Time, which was essentially the big crossover of fairy tales that we knew about as kids, and it was known for its various plot twists, but it was this particular scene I remember seeing that definitely got me hooked and motivated me to try and get through, essentially.
No one thinks that I can do this. No one thinks I can do anything. Maybe they're right. Screw 'em. People are gonna tell you who you are your whole life. You just gotta punch back and say, no, this is who I am. You want people to look at you differently? Make them. You want to change things, you're gonna have to go out there and change them yourself, because there are no fairy godmothers in this world.
All in all, that series was really good. Ruby was another series that even helped me get through high school, and it was like I grew up with the characters since I started watching it, so even after high school passed, it still held a lot of relevance to me. And I love the soundtrack and everything as well. It was really good. You probably know by now I'm a bit of a fairy tale lover, because Little Goody Two Shoes, Once Upon a Time, Ruby, yeah. Let's talk about mental health for a moment. In the last vlog, I didn't mention that mental health is important and not to neglect it. But you must remember as well that your mental health should not be an excuse or justification as to why you may hurt people. Because back in my high school years, even afterwards and then some, I was really terrible. Not getting into any details, but my mental health should never have been an excuse for some of the ways I acted, because that's what I continuously did for a long time. Like I was justifying for my behavior. Even if I was depressed, traumatized, suicidal, it didn't justify for anything I've done. And the same should apply to you as well. It's one thing to make mistakes, and as a teenager, it's understandable as we're trying to understand the world around us and how we interact with others too. But it's another when some of those behaviors that we learn or act out on can be outright harmful and can potentially traumatize or, at worst, kill someone. And when those things happen when we may hurt someone, we have the choice to apologize, learn, and be better for next time. Because even now and in the future, chances are we're all going to make mistakes and do things we shouldn't have. I've changed plenty since high school, but I still slip up. 2024 was really bad in that regard for me because My mental health peaked for a variety of reasons, and I didn't have any genuine support, so I did do some things I wasn't proud of. But it's important again that you learn to do better and not repeat those actions. You have to learn especially that the biggest challenge is to sit with that discomfort and not act out on it. As in, if someone called you out for being bigoted, or you did something else that made someone uncomfortable, don't impulsively go into self-defense or go attacking or invalidating the person that called you out. But unfortunately, there are people out there who have the mindset of, I've been through this and I didn't deserve it, so you have to go through it too, and I'll make your life hell like mine was, instead of being, I'll make sure no one else has to struggle like I did. And across my life, online and offline, I've met a number of people who have no care about hurting others while still trying to justify for their behavior, from general bigots, abusers, manipulators, pedophiles even, abuse apologists. But when being attempted to be held accountable for their behavior, they deflect, lie, victimize, slander, even threaten lives because they don't want to see themselves as the problem. It doesn't matter whether they're an adult or a teenager or a kid they're causing harm to. Across my experiences online and offline, it's almost as if they don't have, or they just lack humanity or empathy for others. And it's sickening, honestly. And again, as mentioned in the last video, I'll emphasize to you all the need to try and be kind and compassionate to others wherever you are, be it online or offline. But take no bull, as in, if someone does act in a way that's not appropriate, to call them out on their behavior. In a world already rampant with hatred and bigotry, the last thing we need to do is add fuel to the fire. As I said before in various places, if someone's being any form of bigoted, and among others being fatphobic, transphobic, ableist are the most common I've known, then them being abusive is very likely not far behind at all. This also includes friends, family members, or relatives who would defend someone else's abusive behaviors. You have to start paying attention to this if you want to avoid being with the wrong crowd or wrong group of friends. And it's something to note whether you see it on your scrolls on social media, elsewhere on the internet, in your own personal lives, to block and mute and just not engage with them to protect your well-being. Especially having over the years seen how horrible some teenagers of this generation act online, and heard about how it is offline with some others, and no one's holding them accountable for their toxic behaviors. You can't really excuse that as, oh, but they're just kids, or boys will be boys. And then there's some adults who just don't seem to care about the consequences of their action and influence on others. If we don't hold them accountable for their behaviors now, how much more abuse are we going to let them get away with? It's why I call out fatphobia so much across VRChat and Twitter especially, because it's one of the very normalized forms of abusive behavior that no one takes seriously enough. Because, as experiences go, the ones I've called out over the years and haven't changed or attempted to justify themselves for what they say, end up revealing themselves to be abusive in other ways as well. That's actually part of the reason I stopped allowing comments on my channels, because of the fact that when I talked about fatphobia in my last vlog, some trolls who were bigoted and to that end hateful towards me in VRChat because I wore a certain avatar, a week prior to that video being uploaded, thought it was solely about them because they know they acted like that towards me and they knew what they were doing was wrong. So the comments I held were focused solely on that, as if it was a coordinated attempt to mass harass me. But anyone who has known me for a while should know I've been yapping about anti-fatness and fatphobia across the years online. They're not the only ones I've dealt with over the years who have acted this way. So it has been something I wanted to talk about here for a long time, and I will, in due time, dedicate a video to discussing that. But the fact that instead of choosing to sit with their discomfort and realize, hey, what I'd done was wrong, these trolls resorted to abuse and bullying tactics in a very unhinged, even obsessive way. Whether they were teenagers, or adults, or both. It makes it more embarrassing, especially when prior to talking about fatphobia, I was talking about mental health. So if you understand mental health, and even just knowing right from wrong, you'd think maybe the very thing you should not be doing is being a mean person. If you don't want to be called out on your behavior, don't be an asshole. But going back to mental health, for those struggling with it, we do deserve spaces, be it among family, friends, online, and elsewhere, that are positive and inclusive of everyone, that we're able to call out bad behavior when it happens and not be shamed for addressing it. We deserve to have our mental health acknowledged by others, and to get that support and help that we need to get through things instead of brute forcing everything on your own or just suffering in silence. After the events of 2024, having to deal with my body and gender dysphoria, which I still partially struggle with now, and how much of a mess I was at the time offline and online, this was something I really needed, especially how given the triggers of said dysphoria were genuinely traumatic and lasted a whole year. Something else I'll talk about another time in the future. I know with the state of the world, there's a lot many of you are likely going through right now. Sadly, I won't be able to fully truly understand that you need support for. And if you're unsure how to help someone, just ask them what they need by way of your support. Whether it's just a company, maybe something to do to pass the time with them, offering event space without judgment, or maybe otherwise just allowing them to have some time alone. And I believe it shouldn't matter on the means on how you communicate with each other. Don't judge if someone prefers text and emails over calls and face-to-face interaction. Don't stigmatize them for that. Personally, communication is still communication. And if someone has a problem with that personally, there's a red flag about them. And honestly, given that everyone in some form or capacity is going through things in their own personal lives right now, from the various things I've heard across the world, like what's happening in America, UK, Palestine, all bigotry related in all different ways. It's why I try striving to be kind as much as possible when I interact with other people, and I try to be mindful about new things I learned that I wouldn't have known otherwise. I can admittedly be too chaotic and dramatic sometimes, online and offline. You see me in VRChat and some game worlds, you definitely know the online case, but I know when to be serious. Put my foot down when someone's acting in a way that's not okay, to call them out on their bad behavior, and if reasoning fails, block, mute, go on my merry way. Because even if their behavior may not personally affect me, what about the next person? But that's it for this video. Again, I can't stress enough. Your mental health is important, so please look after it. But don't let it be an excuse either to hurt other people. And don't forget to block out and mute the ones who make you uncomfortable for any reason. You deserve to protect yourself, especially on the internet when ours runs rampant in these current times. Don't forget to eat, hydrate, take meds if anything, and hopefully I'll catch you around soon. Bye for now.